Greetings everyone, here's another delightful video from me to you through the power of the internet in the video sharing platform known as YouTube currently. This is Level Up Advanced 5th Edition Starter Set from EN World. It's rather interesting how they design the box, as they have this nice little page tear out here. 1 rulebook, 3 adventures, 5 pre-generated characters, 6 maps, 91 tokens. Neat. Also note that unlike the typical starter set, they decided to go with a much thinner form factor on the box. I do appreciate that, as it makes it easier to store the boxes on the shelves. And unlike most other TTRPGs, which has a lot of dead space in their boxes, there is actually extremely little dead space in this box. On the back side, there's the little blurb. It is actually reasonably priced, if I remember correctly, on Amazon. It's hard to find, though. The box opens straight up, like most starter sets. It is a non-treated inside, so it's if you use it as a dice tray, it can ding up quite a bit, and if there's moisture applied, or falls on it, it will stick. Then you have a packet of character sheets right on the very top, first thing. It is actually a rather clean set of character sheets. They come in this plastic envelope, which weirdly enough opens from the bottom, or I just guess that's just how they put them in there. You got a generic universal one for if you want to make a new character or an original character. You have all the information stuff here, right here. It is the little booklet style character folio, as opposed to the cabinet style. So you have all your essential information that you need there. I do find it weird that they make a point of having a character portrait on the very front. And this section of proficiency is exceedingly large, but they wrote the basic stuff in really large text. So this is oriented towards new players. On the next side, you have a heavy focus on your character's background and information about your character. And then on the very last sheet here, you have your weapon attacks and your weapon properties list right there, as well as your special combat features. And on the very back is your information on your exploration, social, and other features and equipment. So overall, I feel that this is not a terribly great setup. There is no actual section for spells for your character, which is weird. My feeling is that this is a very social talkie, not air quotes, but a very social talkie oriented setup, and less so on the mechanics, which I find really weird, because Level Up Advanced 5th Edition is a little heavier, or quite a bit heavier than standard Dungeons & Dragons 5th Edition, or even Dungeons & Dragons 2024 Edition. So if you were to say like classic Dungeons & Dragons 5th Edition, ranges anywhere from Dungeons & Dragons 5.05 and 5.15, and D&D 2024 is D&D 5.25 or 5.2 edition. This is actually like a 5.4 edition here. It contains a lot more depth in their mechanics. You have the character on the front here. You got character background, traveler, the race, class, level, and so forth. Got Dragonborn Ranger 4th level, Warden background, Dwarf, Rogue 4th level, Trap Smith. Plain Touch, which is basically the replacement for the Azamar / Tiefling, is a Cleric 4th and Oracle background, and so forth. They have this really big bar down the side with all your important information. They also denote down here that your armor class with your mage armor will be 15 with your mage armor. All your important stats, your character height, weight, the species / race, the size, the exact height in feet and inches, 2 feet 5 inches, which is actually a halfling, not dwarf, brain fart. Halfling, sorcerer, 4th level, 2 and 5 inches, which is actually really short for a halfling. Halflings are actually right around that 3 foot height. Kobolds are on that 2 foot height. I'm having like a brain fart here. You have your starting equipment, your background, you have your hit points, hit dice, and speed up on top here. Interestingly enough, she has a burrowing speed of 10 feet, which is interesting and stuff. You have this little down here. You have your list on your cantrips and your other spellcasting abilities and spells. Your physical attacks. So this is all customized to your character's setup. So if you can see here, it's not exactly what the generic one is. I personally feel that actually screws with a lot of people. This starter set is getting points knocked off for the fact that the generic sheet is not compatible or is not clean enough for a magical oriented character. It is better set up for a martial character as opposed to a magical character. But other than that, the character sheet is actually pretty decent for a spellcaster when it's the customized version. Please note that they seem to make a strong habit of being really detailed and explaining everything and having all the text worked out on the characters on the sheet. This is nice as a teaching aid for new players. However, Advanced 5th Edition is a little more complex than Standard Dungeons & Dragons 5th Edition, and I feel the slight focus on organizing the character sheets to be more noob oriented actually is kind of losing the point in it, because most people who would be playing a 5th edition system would be, if they're new players or new game masters, they would be focused largely on playing generic Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition 2014 or 2024, not a level up advanced 5th edition. A level up advanced 5th edition might actually only be like for literally like people who know their 5th editions, their WotC 5th edition clones, and they want something more robust than what WotC provides. So they would inherently gravitate towards this system, or Tales of the Valiant, or Broken Weave for a deeper system. And by the way, this is deeper than Tales of the Valiant, which I have here. I have here. Tales of the Valiant is actually somewhere between in 2024 in complexity and Advanced 5th edition. At some point, I'm gonna make like a video where I basically lay out the books and like, this is pro and con. This one is way more complex than this one, and so forth. But anyways, Advanced 5th edition is actually one of the more complicated ones. So it is kind of nice that they have good explanation on the character sheets. However, these are not generic character sheets. These are custom ones specifically to the class. So you end up with an issue where it's not that good. And the generic character sheet is not very good for a spellcaster. And anyways, you can't really level up with these character sheets because level up. I guess that now counts as an ironic pun for Advanced 5th Edition. But the starter set for Advanced 5th Edition is literally, you start at level 4, you play the characters for level 4 for 3 little tiny adventures, and you don't really level up in those adventures, and you just basically transfer over to new character sheets and go from there. The Dwarf Rogue has a book. Okay. And you have Diamond, which is the cleric. Then we have the rules manual, level up your game. This is actually a nice texture on it. This is actually a moisture repelling surface. I know this because I have various other magazines that have this kind of surface on it, and it's actually more resistant to absorbing moisture and such. This is a really handy book for both players and game masters. This is essentially a combination mini game master guide and player's guide. So you have a slight issue in and of that, where you have your monster stuff and your player stuff in the same book. Ideally, you shouldn't have that case. You should have the player stuff in one book and the game master stuff in another. So we have to, yes, knock it for that. Overall, the layout is actually quite nice. I do like the red and parchment background along with white and dark text. They bolden important words throughout the book as far as quick classes information is concerned. They have really nice artwork in this book, actually nicer artwork overall than the actual core rule book for Advanced 5th Edition. Level Up Advanced 5th Edition. They go over all the nice details here. They have nice big bold letters for the beginning of each section, little tables for little quick roll information and such and so forth. So it's actually pretty good overall for explanations and so forth. You do have some really interesting choices. Orcs are basically looks just like humans, except that they are green in tone and have tusks. I personally don't care for that. Orcs are supposed to be orcs. Orcs are supposed to be different than humans. You make the humans and the dwarfs and the orcs way too similar to humans. You actually destroy what's unique about them. You have nice little rules on regions, encounters, weather, and so forth, as well as traveling pace for your characters, as well as haunted lands and other fun things. Encounter table for various things, and so forth. Journey activities. I just had to go back and double check that. These are things you characters can do while they're walking, and then we go into travel scenery, social encounter information, boons and discoveries. They incorporated that into the regular leveling system, having your boons planned out in your discoveries, and so forth. Weather effects and terrain effects. Events that can occur, like losing an item and other such things. You have a little section on leveling up your characters, or level up your characters, which is actually just basic explanation of your characters at level 5. So what would happen if you went from level 4 to level 5? And that's literally it. You got your Goggles of Night, Pearl of Power, Potion of Healing, and other basic magic items, as well as your monsters. Overall, they are nice that they include pretty much every monster has a image for them, with few exceptions. And I said there's a few exceptions, but there are pretty much a photo for every monster. So overall, it's not terribly bad. I do not care for the fact that they chose to put what is essentially the Game Master's Guide book with the player's book, because some players are really bad at wanting to metagame and look forward. And then we have the 3 adventure books, and these are just simple style staples. It would have been much smarter of them to incorporate, say, the monster stat blocks in the back of these books, as opposed to having them in the big book where all the players can look at them. But anyways, it's a short little book. It gives you background, a little extra information specific to that adventure. Gives you an overview on various concepts and important things to it, and then it gets you right into the adventure. Nice big maps you can easily copy out onto a big sheet. The adventures are basically all single session adventures or one shots in D&D or TTRPG terms. So overall, the artwork is really nice for the adventures. They are extremely short. In the case of beginning adventures for a TTRPG, there is so many points given for having the book be really small and quick to the point, which is why I'm kind of like, oh, they probably should put the monsters in the back of these books. Yet they probably actually, it's better off that they would have the monsters in a separate book, just not the book that has the player information in it. That way you can leave the player information book out for the players to quickly reference. And the monster book is behind your corner of your Game Master screen. Overall, nice little map. They at least have like a battle in there. They have some social in there, some adventuring. We got the third adventure, which is the same kind of setup. Specific special details about the adventure. Each adventure seems to have a slightly different focus on flavor and style of where it is. Like one is a swamp, one is in a town/mountainous area, one is in a desert, which is nice. But even if you don't want to draw out your own adventures, you've got the maps for the adventures, and they're all hex grid. So you have the map for the little cottage in the woods, and for the temple. And then you have a big overworld map for one adventure, and a big overworld map for another. And then the third one contains underground owned area for another adventure, and inside of for an adventure. And then you have tokens here. I personally love tokens because tokens, they come in two different sheets in here, by the way. But tokens are a better overall option for a game master to have than, say, minis. They are generally cheaper to produce if you really want to make them yourself. And they're easier to store than minis. Many young, new dungeon masters will get into the terrifyingly bad habit of running out and buying tons and tons of minis. And same thing with some new D&D players or new TTRPG players, where they discover the awesomeness of minis, and then they rush out to buy minis for every character they make for a TTRPG campaign or something. And this becomes a very demoralizing. I've seen this happen firsthand with players where where I've played in groups where they get into a short little campaign and they rush out to buy a mini off a Hero Forge for their character, and the DM has to cancel like the back end of the campaign or something like that. So they just literally design their character, they order their character off of Hero Forge, it ships to them. They're 2 or 3 sessions into the adventure or campaign, and then the DM has to cancel on the 5th or 7th session, and the whole campaign goes dead, and that demoralizes the crap out of players because they jump into this whole mini obsession, and they run into a situation where they burn tons of money, and it goes from being a relatively cheap hobby to a really expensive, really emotionally defeating hobby if you get into that cycle. So I personally highly advise to any players who might be watching is don't get into the mini obsession. You could use like a little die or a token or something, a generic token, or that has a symbol for the class or something like that, and that will work out perfectly fine for your character for the first few sessions. If you have a new game master, there's going to be a lot of cancellations on sessions, and you don't want to burn tons of your money trying to have a character for every set. Have your minis for every a campaign. There's also the problem of if you start recycling the same character over and over again for campaigns because you have a mini for them, it can actually ruin the enjoyment of that character because it makes the experiences with that character more generic. So my general advice is don't start buying tons of minis for adventures before you are certain that it's going to be more than a year of adventuring. Overall, I do like many details of this starter set. However, I like the small form factor. It's great on shelves. I literally put the lid upside down to the back. Again, like something I happen to do all the time. I do like the form factor. I like the clean, precise text and explanations of various things. That is exceedingly nice. Problems. The character sheets are either super specialized to a specific character class, specifically for 4th level and 5th level, and the generic sheet is only really good for marshals. So that's one problem. The second problem is that there happens to be the player rulebook and the game master guide happens to literally be in the same thing. So that is a serious issue in itself, as some players are very much prone to metagaming, particularly new players to a system. I've seen it become really aggravating for game masters and various other people, that some people simply absolutely have to memorize every little stat block for creatures, and they literally cannot play optimally. They cannot play a character that doesn't know literally every single freaking detail about the universe and then every other universe. So it gets aggravating because they basically metagame out solutions to all encounters before the encounter really gets going. So they're terrified apparently of losing or failing or being perceived as less than a absolute perfect person, which actually kind of ruins the experience for tons of other people. So it's a definite bad for having your game master book and your player book in the same book. Okay, that's one of the problems with having a core rule book. The adventures are all snappy, short. They're great for single sessions. That's great for a starter set, as it is the introductory thing that gets players into a system. So you don't necessarily want to have it super long. However, I would definitely have loved that after you've had the 3 or 4 one-shot adventures in the book, the 3 little books, that there would be a 4th book that has adventure that at least is more than 4 or 5 sessions. That would definitely allow people to get more used to their characters and get better at playing. I love the maps. The maps are awesome. I love the tokens. Those are awesome. Those are positive points. So this is a strange situation where you have a bunch of negatives, and they're really important negatives, like having the super specific character sheets for characters and having the generic sheet being subpar as heck, and then having all the information in just one book for both the game master and the players, which is a negative in itself. And then there's no game master screen or cheap game master screen included in this. So that is another problem. And being that there is no game master screen, Now the game master has to hold on to the rules manual more to adjudicate, so they can't really hand it out to players, or just in case the player wants to like look up the rules. It's really handy in a new TTRPG system or starter set to have the game master have their book and hand the player rule book out to one of the players that is exceedingly good at reading through a book and memorizing locations of information. That way they can that you have a player out there who is like, oh, here's the rule for that, and shows it to another player and so forth in the middle of the session while the game master is trying to roll dice and adjudicate, try to figure out some stuff. And that makes it so much easier. So there is this weird case of like there's some really sad oversights in design of the whole set, and then there is some really nice things that are added in. So it kind of works itself out to a 3.5 or 3.25 star or kind of thing. It's better than some of the stuff that comes out by some companies for starter sets. However, there is some issues, and it really is. It's specifically a starter set. It's in a strange situation. It's a starter set that has the whole level up notion in it. However, it does it in such an inferior fashion that Wizards of the Coast in their starter set blows it completely out of the water in the level up expectation, because in the Adventures for Dungeons and Dragons 5th edition, for the 2014 one, you can level up your characters in those systems. The character sheets that are included with them are easy to update your character stats for multiple levels, so you can easily go from level 1 to level 3 or level 1 to level 10, level 5 or 10 or something like that. Go through multiple levels to learn the mechanics of the system, where this thing is literally branded Level Up Advanced 5th Edition, and it's literally condensed it down to a single level range from 4th to 5th for only a handful character classes. So in that aspect, Wizards of the Coast beat the living shit out of this Level Up Advanced 5th Edition. Level Up Advanced 5th Edition literally fails at leveling up. So it's really a 3.25 in that aspect. They did do a nice job of including maps and tokens. That's a really nice thing. Those are bonus items, but fundamentally it is on the bottom end of that 3.25 star range on the basic stuff. And then you have 3 different little adventures and a nicely made omnibus book for both the players and game master. So if this is like literally symptomatic of a Level Up Advanced 5th Edition going up against Wizards of the Coast 5th Edition 2014 or 2024, Level Up completely gets its ass kicked inside out down the block, because it's clearly an inferior version of Dungeons and Dragons 5th Edition. However, I have the book of Level Up 5th Edition, as well as a bunch of other things, and it's not that case in those books. It is just the fact that, for whatever insane reason, when Ian World and they decided to make a starter set, they went really cheap and basic on a bunch of other things. They made some things really nice. They added some nice things in, but it doesn't make up for the fact that the foundation of it is inferior setup than even Wizards of the Coast 5th Edition 2014 and 2024 is shaping out to be. So there we go. This is like a little mini taste of the 5th Edition War, the Fantasy 5th Edition War Clone War. The Fantasy 5th Edition Clone Wars. Yes. Because we have this, we have Tales of the Valiant, and we have the Broken Weave, which I don't have the books for the Broken Weave yet. They will be coming shortly. And I will cover those, and I'll cover this, and I'll cover this. And I'm going to like say, oh yes, this is the shit one. Has some really good ideas in it. And this one is the good one that has some really good ideas. And this one is more of the natural evolution one and so forth. So there you go. Thank you very much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please leave a like, subscribe, comment, add this to a playlist. I will be trying to cover as much level up advanced 5th edition as possible, as well as cover Tales of the Valiant and the Broken Weave or any other 5th edition clone systems, D&D 5th edition clone systems that come out in the future, as well as the 2024 edition of Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition, as well as the 2014, because I still have stuff for the 2014 to go over as well. So have a delightful day, a nice night, a wonderful week, a magnificent month, and see you next time. Ciao.